It was challenging, but then that's what makes what I do fun, is that there's a challenge every day. It wasn't particularly difficult, but the challenge was how could we give them all the modern amenities and yet make it have an old feel to it. It was to design a house for a couple that had traveled extensively in England and had collected a lot of English architectural antiques and furnishings. And it was, the idea was to try to make an environment that worked for these things that they'd collected, these pieces they'd collected.
So Stephen's assignment was given, but how to accomplish the homeowner's mission?
I think the real secret is to use details and proportions of a historical nature. So to do that, we studied English architecture, and I traveled to England, photographed architecture in England. And the owners did have a collection of architectural antiques, and so we worked those into the design of the house to make it resemble something that you'd see in England. We used an English garden bond brickwork detail on the exterior, which looks like a solid masonry wall rather than a brick veneer, which we use here. There are also some the antique copper leader heads, which they brought from England with them, an antique slate roof, the parapet walls capped with cut limestone, and also the diminutive entry to the house gives it that feel of a cottage.
And as for the inside?
Some of the woodwork is new, and it was detailed and painted and stained and so on in such a way that it ends up looking old to match the old. This room that we're in right now has paneling that was from the mid-1600s from England, and we worked it into the design of the house so that it ends up looking like all the paneling and all the detail and molding in the house is of that era. We used a wider plank oak floor and had it slightly distressed, just enough to make it look like it's been here and it's been taken care of over a period of time. But I think the distressing made a lot of difference in having it look like a nice, well-maintained older floor. The original paneling only went to a certain height, but if you look at some of the old English homes, the paneling actually went up to a height that stopped with a piece of crown molding, and then there was a piece of wall exposed, and then another molding at the ceiling. So we were working with the existing paneling and a slightly higher ceiling, but it's very similar to what you'll see in England in some of the homes there. One of the most interesting elements, I think, in the kitchen design is the raised fireplace. It looks like or resembles an old cooking hearth that would be in a very old kitchen that had a cooking hearth that's been converted to a fireplace. So it does have a raised hearth and a raised firebox, which makes it a little out of the ordinary. The kitchen cabinets have a barley oak twist corner on them, which is really reminiscent of a lot of the details that are in the furnishings in the house too. The bay windows in the dining room and the parlor on the front of the house are made out of structural limestone, cut limestone. They're not a veneer, and they actually support the roof above. And the leaded glass that's installed in those bay windows is actually set in the stone. So when the mason was doing the masonry work, he set the frames for the windows in the stone. I think a real big challenge was getting plenty of light into the house. Because it's on a relatively tight lot, fairly narrow lot, it doesn't really have a backyard. So we put 2 courtyards on the side of the house that would let light into all the rooms that surrounded the courtyards and into the center of the house.
The design of the house took almost 5 months, and the actual building process was over a year. So, several years later, how would Stephen sum up this Park City's jewel?
The house has a personality that reflects the personality of the homeowners, and it's also the joy of the homeowners. They just seem to be so happy, and it fits them so well. It's really their home.